As a child of the 60s, I think it was a great time to be around and to be alive and to be a new child at school. And it was really funny, I was going through old slides that my dad had taken when we were all growing up, and my slide, which was titled Sports Day, and actually I was Maleficent, the evil fairy in Sleeping Beauty. Most people had a relay race and I was being the Wicked Witch. Well, there's a surprise in my life. Typecast from an early age. Encouraged by my parents and my school teachers in my junior school, I was allowed to do anything. It was great. I used to make peg dolls and I just drew whatever I could. The last thing I wanted to do was learn maths. I learned how to count money because that's really important, but adding up and things I wasn't really keen on. So I've always made and created things to experiment and progress my imagination. Growing up in a creative, loving home, my mum was a fabulous seamstress and my dad was a logical engineer. I think they deserve a medal having me as like Frankenstein's monster, because I'm very logical, black and white as my mum was. And my dad used to be very clever in 3 dimensions and creating things. And so I inherited their skill base and encouraged always to look and answer the question and make something yourself. When I was training, I was trained in the East End of London for Bridget Wood's Strawberry Studio, and I worked in London and I trained and learned my craft basically in London, as well as being trained in Poly in Newcastle. But I actually always feel that Newcastle is a fabulous base to work from, and I never really wanted to move away from home. If I did want to move away, I would have gone to Paris. But I also felt that the support base, the network system that I had in Newcastle, I could achieve anything I wanted to do. And I just wanted to make frocks and take over the world, which is what I tried to do in the early 80s. The work that I do, I would say I create an illusion. It's not smoke and mirrors, and it is part fantasy, but it is an escape. And I always hope that the clothes that I make, especially if it's for a theatrical production or a dance company, when whoever's going to wear them actually puts the garment on and goes, I feel special in this. Because after all, that's what all people want to be made to feel. The people that influence my design work are vast and varied. They go from people who are current designers, John Galliano, Jean-Paul Gaultier, way back to Adrian, who created the first iconic dresses for Hollywood, Dorothy's gingham dress. I take ideas from all walks of life. I can see something on a pavement, I can see something in a shop window, I can see something that somebody's wearing and take a photograph, because that is what clothing is about. You must be inspired by your surroundings and your environment and history, and everything has a heritage, and research into why certain things were made in a certain way and why you would want to change that, because there are no rules as far as I'm concerned. You just create things. The most important thing as a designer I look for is the colour. When I can't actually do any creative work until I find the colour of a piece of work. Everybody that I work with and friends that know me closely will say, always laugh, and I go into a shop and I will collect very quickly postcards of totally different diverse images that to me make sense, and that I would say is my route of design. A designer needs to understand that, especially in the clothing world, that somebody needs to wear something. When I first started, my slogan was fashion that screams of the woman of the 80s. Basically, the 80s were around to shock people, and I came through the punk rock era wearing a dog collar on Ashton Main Street in 1976. That was rather entertaining for the main bystanders in the pavement. But I lived through the actual process of the total fashion victim. That's what a fashion student was in the late 70s and early 80s. And that came out of St. Martin's. It was a label that was given to any fashion student, and I thought that was rather charming. I thought it was how fab, we've got some little thing to be hung on now, basically, so we're fashion victims. So then you would push it to its extreme, because fashion, to get noticed, if you're a new up-and-coming designer, you have to do something that looks different. And when I first started, one of my dear friends now, Avril Dean, who used to write women's page for the journal, used to write wonderful slogans like Paul Shriek says, fashion should look robotic and stand me on the top of a slag heap. It was fab. As an old school designer, I get frustrated that newly trained individuals often have neglected or haven't been taught basic skills, and maybe on a course of 4 years and not even know what a sewing machine can do. That is very frightening. At the moment, the economic climate and the government's attitude to people like myself is, well, they're a dying breed. We are a dying breed, and I feel so encouraged when I'm asked to go and work with 8, 9, 10-year-olds, because I think that is the generation that we will get back on track. It's very sad that we've probably got 3 generations of people that have lost the will to live and aren't interested, had it very easy, children of the 80s and their offspring and all this kind of thing. And we have a void of skill base which needs to be encouraged. Our universities take on too many students, which means that they can't be given the same education I was given when I was a student. When I graduated in 1981, there were around about 150 graduates in fashion. There are now at least 150 graduates from every fashion course, and there could be about 1,000 courses in this country. There aren't any jobs. I've always said that what I do is a way of life. You can't do fashion stroke, costume stroke, theatre stroke, whatever it is I do, without a total 100% dedication. It is a lifestyle choice, and anybody who is close to me, which is why I say thank you to them in the exhibition, they go on a journey, and I know I'm a gypsy. I actually take people to places, and hopefully they enjoy the experience, but I literally will move from one place to another, and it is what I do. I can't explain other than I make frocks, and I do it all the time. My head's making things. I look for new things all the time. Once I get towards the end of a project, my head has already moved on, and very, very rarely do I get a breathing space to move on. Some designers, when they're very, very wealthy people, go on holiday. I have never been on holiday in the past 10 years. I don't go anywhere. All I do is work. That's really sad. But it's what I do. If I go away anywhere, I constantly look for fabrics. And so I don't stop. I hope that the first gallery in Leopard gives adults and especially children an insight into my world of memories and inspiration. Growing up, I escaped into the loft at home, into my own world, which I now call Wonderland. My mum and dad often handmade presents for us at Christmas, and one Christmas when I was around about 6, I received a fully working marionette theatre, lights and all. I created my own theatrical world and escaped there for nearly 10 years. A large pocket watch stopped at the time when the White Rabbit was late to meet the Queen of Hearts. I think this is something quite poignant about the clock stopping. I have vivid memories of the circus arriving in Ashington, when the animals would walk down the main street and the sideshows would often held the spider lady in a glass case. I also wanted to recreate the mood of the uneasy anticipation I felt entering the world of circus, a place which has always held a strong fascination to me. I love clowns and never understood why people could ever be scared of them. What you see in them is an illusion. I can relate to that. My exhibition of drawings are from my own private collection, until now unseen publicly. I feel strongly and passionately about mark making and being able to draw everything I see so that I can understand the movement and the texture of whoever or whatever I'm trying to make clothes for. The capsule collection of garments is entitled Now Voyager, after the 1942 Bette Davis movies. It has design research from my puppets and has been made for women of my generation in the size and style who I feel often get forgotten. I hope that these ladies will say, I want that, and run to grab it and want to wear it and get the sense of shopping I once provided in the 1980s through my retail outlets and the fab times we used to have in Topshop. My future as a designer will be exciting, I hope. I don't actually think that I will retire. What would I do? You don't retire, you drop down dead somewhere. And as Edith Piaf once said, I regret nothing. And as also Doris Day wonderfully said, Que sera, sera, whatever will be, will be. My life is a journey and I'm enjoying it. And a classic line which I based the Leopard collection on is from Now Voyager. And when asked what I do, and Bette Davis actually said at the end of the film, why ask for the moon when we already have the stars? I actually feel very, very lucky, and I have a lot of stars around me, and my stars are my family and close friends.